We are now less than 10 days away from the MLB trade deadline, and I think we're at the point where we're going to start seeing some moves, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Atlanta Braves are the one that kind of start to push the envelope on some of these moves because, like we said, Alex Anthopoulos, very aggressive GM. He likes to get ahead of the curve. I think a week ago, you weren't necessarily looking at this Braves, oh, they need a boost. I think right now, especially with Ozzie Albies going down, it's like they need a boost now. They need some life. They need life in the clubhouse, and they need life on the baseball field. So wouldn't be surprised if you saw Alex Anthopoulos kind of get the party started in the next couple of days. It would not shock me at all. But the question is how and where does he look to address the team? We talked about the outfield. That's obviously still the most glaring and obvious place for this team to upgrade. But I'm looking now at middle infield as a place where it's like, listen, we just talked highly of Nacho Alvarez, and we think he can handle that job, and maybe he comes up and can. But at the very least, you gotta have insurance in case he can't, right? So you have to add some sort of middle infielder. I know they just added Whit Merrifield. I'm not sitting here and saying Whit Merrifield can play. I think you got to do better than that and add insurance. And then I think you also have to look at a guy that if he can play shortstop too, potentially replacing Orlando Arcia. So I think middle infield is now this glaring need that probably should be addressed. Now, there's not a ton of options. Bo Bichette is one that is always talked about. He just got injured too. So that complicates things. But even looking smaller, just guys that you're looking to catch lightning in a bottle, right? Paul DeYoung, a veteran that's had success in the past. Ahmad Rosario, a veteran that's had some success in the past. Those guys could probably have for nothing. But right now, they're a better option than Whit Merrifield. Plus, they can also play shortstop. So, you have options, right? Play the hot hand. I think you're trying to do the same thing we're trying to do in the outfield this year and did back in 2021. Another name that becomes a lot more intriguing because you have issues at second base, Jazz Chisholm. I don't know exactly what his trade value is going to be, if the Marlins would be willing to deal with the Braves, if they're going to try to place a premium in a potential trade. But he also has outfield capabilities and second base capabilities, that kind of versatility when you kind of have needs at both. And listen, if a guy comes up and plays second base and Nacho Alvarez can play shortstop, all of a sudden you're looking a lot better today, especially if Nacho Alvarez proves. But I think you need insurance for Orlando Arcia and Nacho Alvarez. So getting somebody that can at least play second base, preferably someone that can play both, I think is definitely a need. And starting pitching, I just said I don't think they're going to address it because I don't think, the value is going to be there. It never has been there for Alex Anthopoulos. And I still look at this pitching staff as being the best that we've ever had.
You could look past. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, and I'm not as well versed as you in the MLB field. But can you think of one starting pitcher trade that made? You're gonna be
sick, looking dumb because of the Rangers last year.
Okay.
When they got Jordan Montgomery, Max Scherzer, and Max Scherzer hasn't necessarily panned out, but Jordan Montgomery, they still won a World Series.
Montgomery did, but the fact of the matter is a starting pitcher most of the time is not going to make, more often than not, you see a position player come in and be that piece that kind of puts a team over the top, in my opinion. And I think, when you're talking about the Braves trade deadline, you have to consider Anthopoulos' MO in the past. And like you mentioned, the value just has never been there for starting pitchers. And if it is, it's going to be somebody that you are going to be sick to your stomach. It's going to be a back end of the rotation guy that may not even get a start in the postseason, depending on how things look with Max Fried. So yeah, that's obviously lowest on the totem pole.
Look at we've said it a million times, the best pitching staff the Braves have had since, we started winning division championships 7 years ago and started competing for championships and stuff like that. By far the best. And you're hoping Max Fried's going to be back. We're just going to assume that for right now, because that's as far as we know, right? But look at the past when we didn't have things like the moves that we made for starting pitchers. Jake Odorizzi, not only was it not a big move, but it didn't do anything for the Atlanta. Tommy Malone, Robbie Erlin back in 2020, and that we desperately needed another starting pitcher when Michael Soroka went down, and we had a chance to win a World Series. COVID may have played an impact, but still didn't even go after one then. And we basically had two starters then, Max Fried, Ian Anderson, and nothing else because Cole Hamels got injured too. We had no starting pitching that year, and we came away with Tommy Malone. So and then the biggest starter they've ever acquired was Kevin Gausman, which when you look about it in hindsight, maybe we were a little ahead of the curve on Gausman because we ended up DFAing him. Then he goes and has his best years of his career. So maybe there was something there that they saw. But listen, they don't go out there and get superstar pitchers. And frankly, there's not going to be really ones available. Garrett Crochet is one that's mentioned, but do we have enough to get him? I'm not sure. Do you want to go all in and put all your eggs in that basket when all your guys are injured? Jack Flaherty, rental. Do you want to put your eggs in a rentals basket when you don't have Ronald Acuna and Spencer Strider? Probably not, especially when Flaherty is going to cost a lot at the trade deadline. So I think if they add, it's going to be someone that you're very underwhelmed with. And at that point, why
Yes.
not just let AJ Smith-Shawver, Spencer
Yes.
Schwellenbach,
You're
Ian
better off
Anderson
going in-house candidates than, giving away, and they're not going to be valuable prospects, considering, AJ Smith-Shawver, Spencer Schwellenbach, all those guys are your valuable prospects, but it's still, giving up assets that could have been used for something else in the future. Yeah. I mean, it's outfield and middle infield, 1A, 1B. I'd put outfield still 1A, 1B being middle infield, just because it feels like the outfield is easier. I mean, you can fill it much easier. You can get somebody who's maybe not as good defensively, and we can give up some defense if he's good enough offensively. It just feels easier to address the outfield. And I think when you're talking about a middle infielder, future matters. And, Jazz Chisholm's a guy that, a lot of people are talking about, but you got to think about the future. He's going to be here in Atlanta. If the Braves traded for him, he'll be here next year. You're not going to play him at shortstop. You're not going to play Ozzie Albies at shortstop, so outfield. What are you going to put him in the outfield and then platoon him with Jared Kelenic? And
he's primarily an outfielder.
Yeah,
so I don't think that's why I think Jazz Chisholm is a little more intriguing, because he also can play outfield. Rengifo too, you could put him in the same boat. Angels guy's been playing third base, could play some second base, also could play some outfield. So those are some intriguing candidates. But I think at the end of the day, this is what I do. And I don't know how they're going to do it. And frankly, what we've learned from Alex Anthopoulos is don't even look at the main guys. Go find some AAA guy who's really sucking and he's going to be your NLCS MVP, or some guy on the IL, right? It's going to be someone that we're not even talking about. But I think what I would do if I was the Atlanta Braves, right, is you have to trust the pitching staff that you had, because it's been the best in all of baseball in terms of ERA for, 100 games of the season. You trust those guys, and then you just focus all of your things on trying to get your offense as good as possible. And the fits may be a little bit wonky. You may not have guys that are great defensively at shortstop.
I think you're going to have to fully accept that every single trade that nothing is going to be perfect. Everything is going to be wonky, and it wasn't necessarily perfect in 2021 either. Like, we had too many guys who were power bats and not enough good defensive outfielders. Everyone we pretty much acquired was, Jock Peterson was probably the best, or Adam Duvall was the best, but the other three guys were subpar defenders, and some of them terrible. Jorge Soler is a terrible defender, and you just kind of had to roll with it. Something similar is going to happen this year, where you're just going to have to roll with it.
And that's what I
just
think.
Play the hot
I
hand.
I think that's what you do. You just try to get as many, like whether it's second baseman, outfielder, it's like get a bunch of different faces in the building that, maybe we're underachieving. You look at their peripherals or something. Maybe you feel if they're surrounded by a better lineup, they can get out of, whatever funk that they're in. But yeah, get bodies in the building, new faces in the building, guys that are good in the clubhouse, have some upside, and, can accept whatever role that they're going to be asked of on a team with championship aspirations, and hope three of them work out. All five didn't work out. 4 out of 5 worked out, as we said. Hope 2 or 3 of them work out. And if you can get 2 guys hot in this lineup, added, and other guys can start playing up to their capabilities, you can win a lot of games. And I think that's get bodies, because this team needs depth. This team needs starters. This team needs depth. I mean,
Whit Merrifield does not need to be on this roster.
Short doesn't need to be on this roster either. This team needs 4 or 5 guys. Not everyone needs to be a star or a starter, but they need guys. They need
upgrading a bench piece is something that maybe not be sexy to Braves fans, but could be that important to, getting to your ultimate goal.
I think baseball, we talk about football being the ultimate, team sport, but I think if you go year to year, at the rosters and look top to bottom, 26 men, like, they usually don't have holes. Like, they have guys on the bench that can come up and fill the role that they're asked of. And right now the Braves don't have those guys, and they don't have starters. So I think I think bodies that play certain roles, that's how I expect them to do it. I don't think it's going to be a crazy name, like even a Randy Arozarena, who I think is one of those guys I would consider a perfect fit. I wouldn't even expect something that. I think bodies, multiple, 4 or 5
that would be
guys.
The kind of juice, though. Because another interesting facet of all of this is that intangible aspect to the Braves locker room, where, this is one of the best cultures in all of sports, but eventually you keep getting beaten down and you're going to be, in a rut. And that's exactly what the Braves are. You see a guy like Max Fried, who may not be a vocal leader, but he is arguably the leader of the pitching staff. And Ozzie Albies is that vocal leader of the entire team, the elder statesman here in Atlanta with Max Fried. More than ever, we need somebody to come in and inject some life into the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, I say this all the time, but I think it's hilarious when you go on social media or something, but dude, the vibes are just off. It's like, yeah, we're not winning, and every single day a new star player seems to be getting injured. Like, if these guys were sitting around here laughing, singing Kumbaya
That'd be a big problem.
around a campfire, we'd have an issue. Like, these guys are competitive. They want to win. And yes, it looks good when you're winning, but when you're losing, and then on top of that, your best players are going down, it feels like
your other best players are sucking.
Yeah, and it feels like you're getting beaten down. Like, it feels like they're feeling the same way that we're
kicking
feeling
a dog down when it's down.
Times 10. But that doesn't mean things can't change with a little bit of success and a little bit of juice injected at the trade deadline. And that's why these next 10 days are very well could decide, just like they did in 2021, the Braves' fate in 2024. So it should be really exciting for Braves fans coming up this week.